Da 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 da. What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes to get those notifications out. In the meantime, if you've never met me before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And today it was in the inside, but it was in my own well being. It was kind of like a message I've been getting in the past few days. And in the messaging I've been bringing on to my brand and bringing into my lives for the past week, you might have noticed about that message of taking care of ourselves, making us the priority of our own lives. Lots of times we wait for the big wrenches to get thrown into our lives, and then we get into action. We get into that hairy, scary of our actual well being, our actual lives. And we should be doing that every day, every day, not being that selfish person, not being that person that just gives to ourselves, just thinks about ourselves. That's kind of a narcissistic idea. But in some of that messaging that I had last week in about keeping our cups full and divvying out all the overflow, right? And it doesn't mean ignoring the needs of others, right? Outside of us, because we can do both at the same time. It's like a Roman, right? Fountain out in a courtyard, like it's constantly flowing, isn't it? And that's the way that we should be doing it in our own lives. And I have to be honest, I'm not quite sure if I've been doing that. I've kind of felt like I've been, I don't know, treading water, feeling that I've fallen behind in so many ways. And maybe that's something in my upbringing that I've gotten that attitude. I don't think that I would be here right now if I didn't have that aspect of myself. And that's a truth. And I do appreciate that gift. And I don't sure if it was a gift when I was learning, right? That those traits, but it serves me now. And because I earned that badge, right? That trophy, if you want to call it a trophy, that bit of control, peace of mind, that I have every right to utilize those badges. I have every right to. And like I said, I don't think I would be here right now if I wasn't that tough on myself or that insecure in where I'm at in my life. The further I move forward, the more I appreciate the me in all of this. You know, I haven't been very kind to myself over the years. We're going to say over the decades, because this started very, very early. And I didn't wake up to any of these ideas until well into my 50s. I'm going to be 65 years old this year. And I'm kind of proud of where I'm at right now, but not just proud. I'm so grateful. Like it could have been a totally different story. What that story would have been, I don't know, because it's in our choices that reveal, right, where our life is going to go. And sometimes it is in those insecurities that we have that we make choices to stop, right? We make choices sometimes to be super hard on ourselves and not stop, to just mush, mush, mush. And how kind is that? This word kindness is such an important word in my life because for that very fact that, it's not been a word that has been truly relevant in my life. And in those times that those small kindnesses or big kindnesses have come across my path, they were everything. And I think in those kindnesses, it kind of gave me that want, need, desire to have more kindness in my life. And also, right, to reciprocate all those kindnesses in my life. In truth, I'm not going to have the opportunity to show my appreciation of some of those kindnesses for different reasons. Some of the kindnesses come from people who have passed away. Some of those kindnesses are from people who have gone away. Some of those kindnesses were not taken into consideration, and I've gone away, right? And like I said, we can't always go back into the past. Very rarely can we go back into the past and fix what we've got wrong. We can't go back there and say, thank you for all that you've done for me, right? Thank you for where I'm at right now. Thank you for guiding me in making some of those amazing choices when I didn't feel that I had support underneath me, that I was in it all by myself, that I was about to sink and not swim, that I was just going to go down like a lead ball. And there were lots of times I felt that way. But that's the thing. Those are feelings, right? And lots of times we can be our worst, I'm not going to say enemy in that because that just kind of takes away from the whole message that I want to put out there. But how about if I say antagonist, right? In that mush, faster. You're not getting enough done, right? That we can be super hard on ourselves, and being super hard on ourselves, it does put us in a state, doesn't it? Now I appreciate where I'm at right now because I recognize in that little bit of toughness that I've given myself, that little bit of accountability, that little bit of self parenting, because nobody wanted me to move forward. People were perfectly content to have me sit in the same spot and just shine on them. But the idea is to move forward in my evolution. And as I move forward, to share in that experience and being the example and the evidence for other people in that idea that it can be done. But I don't want it to be done at my expense. I want to enjoy the ride. I want to enjoy the views. I want to enjoy the experience. And I want to meet people who are in their own experiences and want to do the same thing, but maybe not have that idea or those lessons that I may have picked up along the way. And then those lessons that I missed out on, because each one of us gets to make choices in the minute, right? And, or I'm sorry, in the moment. And like I said, we can't go back to the past quite often and course correct, because that moment is gone. Hello, Tammy. Hello, Tammy. How's your night going tonight? How's your night going tonight? I had no idea what I was going to talk about tonight. Usually Fridays I keep it kind of light because it's going into the weekend. And also, it's in that recognition at the end of my week that some of the topics that I talk about are heavy, but they're necessary. They are truly necessary. And for some people, they might think that it's insignificant, but it's only in the moment you think it's insignificant. What if 2 years down the road you find yourself in that doo doo that was exactly relevant to this moment, but you can't come back here right now? Making sure that my content is saved, my podcasts are saved. These are listed as content, that it's here, that you're able to come back in and rehash some of these topics that I talk about. And because AI is getting so magnificently, I can't even put a word to what it is in its magnificence of where it's going. That even in this moment, that that impact that I make is not hitting, right? But that doesn't mean that it's never going to hit. And it's because of my choices to want to keep going. For me, this has gotten to the point of legacy, right? This is what I'm leaving behind, right? Optimistic that some of those other parts of me might stumble across it decades, hundreds, thousands of years from now. And even though they can't go back to this point, in a sense, maybe they can, in keeping company with me, because at any time, this is the glory of YouTube. Like, it's going to be here forever, and something that's not relevant today can be relevant tomorrow, right? And something relevant tomorrow just might not be relevant today, because again, it's in those choices that we make. And that we make mistakes in the choices. We make wrong detours. We regret sometimes, that we didn't have that opportunity to express that kindness somebody did for us, or that lesson that came across our path, you know, and one of those lessons is, this is me. This is my life. And in the beginning of becoming a YouTube creator, it was about making this a job, making this a career, right? And who's to say if that should happen? Because again, it's going to be in my choices as I move along in my life where I'm going to end up. And where I'm going to end up, I don't know, because change is so ever present. Who I was yesterday is not who I am today, and who I am today is not going to be who I am tomorrow. But there may be similarities in that, right? And in our emotions and in our understandings, we kind of get that it is in that up and down. It's not a flat line that our lives are in, right? There are those experiences, those adventures, those detours, those choices that we make, those total chaos, messy experiences that we do wish that we could go back and fix. But we can't. Lots of times we can't. What is done. You know, I think for a good example of that is I didn't fight for the end of my marriage. When my marriage ended, I didn't fight for it, right? I just said, go, right? Go. And I should have fought harder. I should have had those calm conversations where I had a really good understanding as to where we had gone wrong in our relationship that had gotten us to the point where we didn't want to carry on in our marriage. I put no effort into it. And in the back of my mind was that quote, you know, set it free. And if it comes back, it's yours. And if it doesn't come back, it never was. I had that. I lived by that. That was my truth, and that was a choice that I made. And I'm not sure if that was a good choice because I can't go back into the past and rehash that. I can put myself in those shoes of my experience and, right, kind of jump into the shoes of my husband's and put myself in a frame of mind to see where he was at in that. But when we make those kind of decisions, they're toughies, right? And they're sometimes really difficult to understand, especially when you're in a frame of mind where life has just fallen apart. It's also a good example about putting that work in that moment that we have that opportunity to, right? That would offer up when those situations happen, that we are prepared, right? That we have questions that can be answered to help us bring resolution to our lives, right? To make it so that we are not disillusioned in relationships, that we can jump back in and give that experience, that kindness, that love that we have to somebody else who might be a better fit for us, right? If even in the moment we don't feel that way. But that's a kindness to ourselves. That is truly a kindness to ourselves if we can be that little bit of forward thinking. We're not foreshadowing. We're not fortune telling. We are not putting spells into the future to say this is what's going to happen. Let's prepare in this, right? But there is that idea that, when you move into a new home, you have a little fire drill, don't you? You know where the fire exits is, how you're going to get out of the house, what you're going to do in preparation to take care of the kids. If you only have 2 minutes, what are the most important things in the household that you want to take with you? Because if something like that should happen, and that, well, for me it would have been the photo albums, right? Those memories. Now I got the memories here, right? But in that storytelling, every once in a while I like to go through the photo albums. I like to go through the photos, right? Nowadays we have all that stored on our phones, right? So maybe it's the phone that you want to make sure that you're running out the door with, right? Maybe it's just a little money box because that's that's your livelihood. That's the roof over your head. You might have to stay in a motel for a month or so, right? To think of these kindnesses, you might not think that those are kindnesses, but I tell you, when you get yourself in a really bad situation, when that wrench gets thrown into your life and you are in that frazzled, brokenhearted, grief, frustration, agitation, destitute. When you're in that state, that kindness that you might have done for yourself and preparedness for such moments as that might be a saving grace for you in that moment, right? In that last moment, sometimes when somebody says goodbye, to let them know how wonderful an experience it was in knowing them. Mention all the kindnesses, offer up forgiveness, right? These are all kindnesses to ourself, right? When I say kindnesses, like that's true, and that wouldn't be something that you would think about, would it? Because you think of kindnesses as something material being handed to you, or somebody, helping you to move or doing the dishes. But sometimes it's those things that can trip us up in the future, that if we can do a little bit of preparedness for small, right? You don't have to know what those issues are. You don't have to dwell on the possibilities. But should they arise and you're not in a state of mind, you're going to appreciate, right? It might even be less of a shock, a less of a hit, right? Not because you expected it, but because you had a little bit of inkling that it was a possibility, right? That it was a possibility, and everything is a possibility, and it's all in our choices how life is going to go. And I would much rather be prepared in something that in this moment I'm not doing anything. What can I do? The dishes are done, housework is done, the chores are done, right? You're not doing anything in the moment. But sometimes, can we sit with ourselves just in the quiet, do a little bit of projects, or maybe we have a hobby like knitting or embroidery or tinkering around with Legos or something, that we can be in our minds and kind of prepare, right? Not dwell, not dwell, but prepare, because that's a kindness to ourselves. Like I said, when I first started on YouTube, there was that expectation that possibly it would be a career for me. And now, who was it? I came across a post today. I can't remember, a thought leader in there, and he was talking, if something doesn't work for you after 32 months, then give it up. It's useless. It's just a hobby. And I feel things out really, really well. And I just looked at that post and I says, great post, right? But you're killing dreams. And lots of times, your dreams want to make sure that that's what you truly want, because we're ever changing. We're always making choices. How do you deal with the wrenches thrown in your life? Are you going to quit, right? After 32 months? 32 months is not even 3 years, and you're giving up on your dream? Okay, maybe it will be just a hobby, just an interest. But I'm not going to allow somebody else to dictate to me that that's what it's going to be. I'm moving forward in that. That's a kindness to myself. And where I'm at right now, if I had seen that post a couple of years ago, maybe I would have just said, oh, That's so terrible. Maybe I should just give up. This is absolutely useless. And now I'm at that state where this is my legacy. This is what I'm leaving behind. This is my service. This is what's going to be here in 10 years, 20 years, 20 generations from now. And maybe in this moment, it's not relevant to anybody except for me. Hello, Kathy. Maybe it's not relevant to anybody except for me. But this is my legacy to myself, right? And when I say myself, I don't mean Cindy, but to myself, to wherever those other parts of me land next, that they won't find themselves in the same doo doo that I woke up to. Like I said, maybe in that idea of why I'm tough on myself sometimes, that I think I'm falling behind, that I'm not going fast enough, that maybe, my dreams will never manifest. Well, that's not true, right? That's not true because this is where I'm at now for myself, and I'm so pleased with where I'm at now. Lots of people don't even make that effort and don't even get to a fraction of where I've gotten in my life. And in my choices, I may have stepped in some doo doo, right? I readily accept that. I can't go back into the past and do course correction in that. But in understanding that and still alive and kicking and still here in my hobby, right? Which has now become my legacy, that I have an opportunity because I never gave up. I adapted, I conquered, I pivoted. And we can't let anybody or anything, right, convince us otherwise. Because if it's your passion, if you feel strongly it's what you're supposed to be doing, right? Because what I'm doing in my life, I don't need to be on YouTube for that. If it's my legacy, right? I can sit here and I can do it all on my own. But where's the give back in that, right? If I can't be a philanthropist and divvying out the cash for amazing causes out there, can this be my give back, right? It most definitely can. And I'm grateful for that kindness that I gave myself in recognizing that. And it was something that was readily gobbled up, accepted, right? Because I am in partnership with myself. And that's the truth, right? Never let anybody convince you of anything. Oh my goodness, Parfene! I have not seen you in a long time, dear. Oh my goodness. Parvene's my friend, one of my friends from Iran. I'm not sure if she's living in Iran right now. She's a little bit of an it girl. She likes to do her traveling and stuff. It's pretty amazing. But each one of us get to have the choices in how we want to create our lives, right? And that is a truth. And you have to follow what you believe in because this is your life. You're creating your legacy, right? You're creating your very own legacy by just living your life. And right, I would say to anybody if I could offer up another gift, because not everybody wants to be on YouTube. Nobody wants to work in social media. Parvene works in social media. But not everybody does. It's not everybody's jam, right? But what can you do? You can turn your phone on, turn your camera on, put it up to your face, and say your piece, right? And you could save that video. Just save it. Or maybe it will just upload to your Google Photos, right? Back up onto your Google Photos or whatever your cloud is. But that's there for prosperity. And that's your legacy, right? Might be 10 years, 100 years, 1,000 years. But what you offer up in that little bit of video that you could make in the moment, in that genuineness that you would share to the world, right? If you worked in social media, if you had a YouTube channel or an Instagram or Facebook, right? That it doesn't have to be there right now, right this moment. Not everybody wants their story told. Nobody in the moment doesn't share. But when you're gone, do you really care? If it serves somebody in the end, wouldn't you want it to be served? Right? Somebody would shoot you a little memory and say, "Oh, that's Cindy." Right? Like I do with Carl Young. Carl Young's been gone since 1961. Right? And I would think, like I'm never going to have an opportunity to say thank you for that kindness of writing those books and, you know, documenting and doing your recordings and doing those deep studies and making those difficult choices in his life, which he most definitely did, that caused relationships to be severed, to make people look at him like side-eyed, like, right? And yet in this moment he's considered one of the greats, right? One of the greats. Another one who comes to mind, it's a Canadian thing. Lou Riel. They hung him as a traitor, right? And now he's honored. He's part of our history. He's one of the magnificent leaders of this country, and yet he never knew it. What about Monet? Was it Monet who had his ear, right? He had a difficult time. He was a starving artist. He never made money. There were very few famous artists out there who made big money. Maybe Leonardo da Vinci, right? Maybe my Bierstadt, right? My prince here. He was an entrepreneur. He was very successful. But most artists are insignificant in their own lifetimes. And yet, today, their paintings go for millions of dollars. They would just be rolling in the ground, right? And they could have quitted any time and said, okay, forget it. This is my last painting, right? Forget it. I'm never doing another one. And then we would never have had the Mona Lisa. We would never have had all those beautiful paintings, right? Of the churches up in the ceilings, and those beautiful domes. We wouldn't have had some of these greats because, right, they might have made a different choice because they threw their hands up in the air and they said, "Oh, I'm not appreciated. I'm not making any money. I'm a nobody. So and so said so. So it must be true," right? But no, they left their legacies behind. And I'm going to always consider that whenever I have one of those voicey me's to say, oh, right? I'm so far beyond that now. Like, seriously, this is my legacy. And in this moment, like I said, it might not hit home with anybody, but 10 years, 20 years, 20 generations from now, it just might be the spoonful to keep somebody going, right? That gets to the point that they can leave their legacy, and maybe that's the one person that keeps this human race going on, moving forward, right? You never know the contributions that somebody is going to make, right? Because sometimes it doesn't happen in the moment. Sometimes it's so far away that we are gone, right? But if I'd given up 10 years ago, like I was supposed to, because somebody said after 36 months, if you don't succeed, it's a hobby, right? Quit. Find something else to do. Then this message wouldn't have had even an inkling of a chance to hit where it was supposed to hit, right? If anybody gets that. Okay. Parvane, very nice to see you, dear. I hope life is treating you well. Um, okay, I'm coming back here. Oh, Tammy says, okay, Cindy, yes, I think you should keep on talking about the serious topics. They can reach and help people out there. But we remember it's just a perspective, right? It's just a perspective. And it is in my life. But lots of times we have to be that example for each other, right? And who wants to listen to the heavy stuff all the time? That's why I just mix it in with the storytelling and in the showing up and in the way that I do it, right? That maybe it's a little bit interesting, if not amusing. And if not, maybe you'll give me another shot tomorrow, right? And that's the way that I look at it. But it's like a bird's eye view of how I work a little bit, right? Um, Cindy, you want to hear something very truthful coming from me right now? I wish I would have said no more times in my life and past. I started saying no in the last couple of years. Yeah, that was a tough one for me, Tammy. It's hard when you say no. People don't like to hear that word no, right? We've been trained to not say no. So when that pops out of our mouths, that people will look at you like, what are you talking about? Who do you think you are? And it could be difficult. It could be uncomfortable. It could be painful. Sometimes it can be devastating, right? And I've had those experiences too. Those were hard lessons, but you feel good about it. And then also to understand that in the end, everything worked out okay, right? Everything worked out okay, right? In saying no, right? I think that builds that relationship to yourself. And if we're going to talk about kindness, I think that's a pretty amazing kindness that you can give to yourself, right? Because that's part of the unkindness that has been divvied out to us. And we took that baton and we ran with that and we treated ourselves that way too, not being able to say no and buckling down when we knew we were right, right? You are an expert in what you do, Tammy. This is something that I know for a fact. And to somebody to make you feel like you're insignificant or inferior or don't matter, not smart enough, not pretty enough, not young enough, not old, whatever the reason is, right? And we gobble that up, right? Sometimes you just got to say, that's it. No more. No more. And they're going to give you that side eye, right? And they're going to make your life miserable. And you got to learn to hold your own, which is another kindness, even though it's uncomfortable, doesn't feel good, it doesn't feel like a kindness. It is truly a kindness, right? Because you're showing yourself that you're your own best friend, your own bodyguard, right? Your own cheerleader. And that's something that I haven't done, right? As much as I would like to have done also, Tammy. So I appreciate that you shared that because that's 100% the truth. Right? It's a world of power. We're just all trying to overpower each other, right? And it's the way where we're brought up, and it's going to take generations, right? And we shouldn't beat ourselves up because we are like that also. But if we can recognize that that's the way we are, we can recognize sometimes when we're in that moment that maybe we can be a little bit softer, a little bit less controlling, right? And not think so much about ourselves, but think of others, right? By saying, no, I don't think so, right? Yeah, that's a good one, Tammy. I like that. I'm going to start saying more no again. I'm tired of losing out on things, many years taken away from me, too, for others and some friends, etc. I got put in living other people's lives. I can see that, Tammy. I can appreciate that, but remember what I said, we can't go back into the past and change things, right? And we also can't make the person who's trying to put us in that spot that so and so did to us 20 years ago and make them pay for what somebody else did 20 years ago. And that's not really fair, too. And the idea is to stay soft in the process, right? Because I can tell, Tammy, that you're a very loving, caring person. But being in loving and caring, right, we do get taken advantage of. And I kind of respect that you're taking care of yourself because that's the idea in filling up your own cup, right? And you create the light for yourself, and people are going to recognize that you hold your own, Tammy, because if you buckle down, right? If you back down and don't say no, you'll always be that yes person. The yes person is never the leader, isn't it? It doesn't matter how much of an expert you are. If somebody can convince you that you're not, right? And I can see, Tammy, that you're a leader, right? In your own right. And being no, I think it will be respected. It'll be respected even by the people that you said no to. You might find yourself with a raise and a new position. Or no job at all because somebody's just like, what did you say? Oh my goodness. People are trying to take advantage of me, etc. I'm going to do more for myself and my brother. It is going to be it's going to be me time and do things more, right? And take care of me more. I think so, right? Just love on yourself, Tammy, right? Remember your job, your interest, and your hobbies. I don't include like religion and spirituality and stuff like that because it's a very personal thing. Some people are in it, some people are not. But if you just focus on those three things, your work, your interests and your hobbies and just bounce around in those three things that you absolutely love, that you enjoy, that make you feel good, it will make you so much of a lighter person, right? I wish I had discovered that. I enjoyed life, but I could have been in saying, and being able to say no. I also have to say and recognize that I wish I was a little bit more responsible, right? That I didn't rely on others so much to take care of my needs, right? I was a big pogey. Pogey is the unemployment that we have here in Canada. I didn't like working. I didn't get treated well at working. I hated working in all honesty, but it was only because I wasn't in jobs that I loved. Because I know that because I have had jobs that I've absolutely loved. But every opportunity that I could get on unemployment and let the government take care of me because I needed that break, I needed that rest. That's exactly what I did. I would have been more giving and more appreciative of, you know, this beautiful country that I live in, and I would have been a better citizen. It's what I'm trying to do now in being a better citizen. When I'm walking down the street and picking up garbage, when I'm sitting at a bus stop and I'm having conversations, when I'm divvying out a compliment, when I'm giving out suggestions, when I'm giving likes and hearts on topics that are relevant that I think will help the city or the province or the country that I live in, and even in other provinces, states, and countries, right? It's just in showing that appreciation and not relying so much on others' little tokens of appreciation, right? Those are kindnesses. Take them. Don't, right? I never deny. If something is offered and I can use it, I have no problem taking it. But I don't want to avoid. And that's what I was doing. Right? I'll go on pokey. I don't want to work. I just want to lay on the couch with the remote control and watch Survivor and Big Brother, right? It took a lot of years, a lot of lessons, a lot of chasing after goals and dreams, right? And yes, maybe in the moment, they were just dreams and hobbies, but they may, they will, they should be legacy somewheres down the road. And I'm not stopping now, right? These kindnesses that we divvy out to others, we just have to remind ourselves to give those kindnesses to ourselves because we are just deserving. And I would think that in comparison to a lot of people who are not even trying, that maybe we are more deserving, right? But again, it's all in our choices, right? The choice we make today could just turn us down a totally different road and a totally different life. And all we can do is feel our way along, right? Whistle while we work, dance in the rain. Okay, you guys, let me come down here. We'll pick a card. And happy Friday, everybody. I'm not online tomorrow. I will be online tomorrow, but I won't be divvying anything out tomorrow. I will be back Sunday night for Chatters Live, and then I will be back here on Monday night. It sure was nice that Parvene showed up. Man, I haven't seen Parvene in such a long time. It's nice to see that you're able to get in here on YouTube. Oh my goodness. My family and relatives and friends got angry, mad at me. I got treated badly in return at times, right? Got to remember, what did you say to me the other day? You just leave it to God, right? You get what you give in this world, and that's the truth, right? You get what you give. And it's not always, right, when we talk about relatives and friends, it's not usually the whole bunch, right? There's usually a stinker here and there, right? They're those people that really want to trip you up, but because they're friends or relatives to somebody else in that group, it's that little bit of support system, right? There's that person who says, I second that, right? Tammy did say that. Tammy did do that. And it can be discouraging. So you got to remember sometimes you have to accept that when you lose one, you lose a few, and not to take it to heart, right? Because a couple of those people that you lose, they're sad to lose you too, but they made a choice, right? And in making choices, right, sometimes you can't go back to the past and fix it. Sometimes you can, if you can learn that word and that emotion of forgiveness. Yeah. Okay, you guys. Tammy, a lot of my family and relatives and friends think the world revolves only around them and it's only about them, and uh, and not what and not care what about what you go through or what happened to me. Sorry, I should have said what I go through or what happened to me, and that's unfortunate, right? I've had those relationships in my life too, but right, it's like we have that dot in the middle of our forehead that says use me, abuse me, right? Until you can learn to say no, not now, not ever, right? And hold your ground in that. um 100%. Kathy says, Tammy, you deserve to put yourself first, especially if people in your life never do. It's even more important for you to do it, right? 100%, Tammy, right? Treat yourself like your own best friend. That's self parenting, right? That got me through, right? Because sometimes I didn't treat myself like a friend because I didn't feel like I didn't think I was a good person to myself. But in parenting, right, I could see where parents sometimes get things wrong. And, in understanding in that self parenting, we can do a little bit of course correction. And in fact, in that self parenting, right? We're giving ourselves that opportunity to say thank you, right? For the kindnesses. Sorry that I didn't, right? Make you a priority. I'm going to do a little bit better now going forward because it's never too late, right? If it's legacy, it's going to be something that's going to be very helpful in the future, right? Okay. Oh my goodness. Chatter, chatter. Uh, it's a good lesson to show them that everyone deserves respect and compassion. Yeah. And we're brought up sometimes not to have that voice. That's the way I was brought up, to be non-confrontational, you know, have that quote slammed at me a couple of times a day. Two wrongs don't make a right. Every time I'd want to say something about what something wasn't fair in something, or have my piece, have my say, and then have that blasted back at me, so I know what it feels like not to feel like we have a voice in things. But you can start today. Don't get fired, Tammy. Do it smartly. That's the one thing about us, though, right? Because we are students and we are spectators. And even though we don't utilize those tools, We earned those badges, and you have every right, just as much right as anybody else, to utilize them. They're just hoping that you don't, right? Yeah, for their own comfort, not your comfort. Hello, Eugene. Um, right, Kathy, and I got put in last place. I'm going to make some more changes in my life for myself and my health. For me too, Tammy, this is what this whole conversation, this whole week has been about, because I got my first family doctor. She's been putting me through the mill with tests. I went for a mammogram yesterday. They gave me the boob squish in the machine. Right? But I have to understand, that I don't have all the answers. And that became up in the lessons this week, too. That I have to understand that I'm not the be all to end all. I don't have the final say. I have to trust in others' expertise, right? But it's going to be in my choices, and I made a good choice in finding the family doctor that I did. She is on top of it, right off, so on top of it, she's got me on iron pills now, right? And that was something that I really missed out on because of my gastric bypass. It was something that I was supposed to pay real attention to. And for years I did. I go on these courses of what's the name? It's a high iron tablet I was taking. I take a course of like a week of them once every couple of months, and it kept my system really good. But I totally forgot about it, and it's been a couple of years for sure, at least a couple of years, and I haven't taken any iron at all, only because I read an article that said, right, that it can hurt children taking so much iron, that adults don't need as much iron as the kids do. And I thought, oh my goodness, right? Like I don't want to take iron if I don't need it. And I just stopped taking the iron. It was just like the silliest thing I could have ever done for myself. And I put myself in a situation where I could have done some damage, right? Because that's what regulates the oxygen to all your vital organs. And you guys know how active I am in the walking and the bike riding and stuff. The way I move. There's days that I don't move, but when I'm moving, I am moving, and I have no idea how I let that one slip, but she caught it, right? She caught it, and that was a kindness. And I all I had to do was go to the drugstore and pick them up. She just phoned in the prescription for them. But I'm going to stay with them, right? I'm going to take the whole course. It's going to be more than a week or two, right? But I'll take the entire course, and I'm going to follow her, right? She's proven herself to me already, and I've only had her for like a month already, right? But all the other tests turned out good so far. So she was really pleased with all my blood tests and everything. She tested for everything. There was so many vials. I don't think there was even any spots for any more vials for the amount of blood they took out of me. She tested for everything, right? She's going to send me for a couple of other things, right? But that's a kindness that I'm also doing for myself, right? In taking care of my well-being, understanding I don't have all the answers. I'm 65 years old. I shouldn't be self-diagnosing, right? Google and YouTube, right? Those are resources that offer up amazing information, and giving credit where credit is due there. Me going to find a doctor wouldn't have even happened unless, in my Googling and stuff, it was suggested maybe I should. Right? Oh my goodness. Um, yeah, you never know. Like, you guys, you feel good. You don't feel, you see people who have big issues that are totally visible, but lots of stuff is not visible. So it's important and that's a part of my self parenting, right? Right? Nobody likes to go to doctors. I don't want to get wrapped up in that system. I have this claim to fame that I'm grateful for my good health, but I just can't rely on affirmations, can I? So far, they've worked pretty good for me, but I would have to say this new doctor that I have is working out pretty good for me too, because yeah, I slipped up, not right. It's and I had episodes of pica, right? And uh and that's where the ice crunching comes from. When I got addicted to crunching on cough drops and stuff like this, it comes from this lack of iron, and I don't know what was going on in my brain that I just didn't put two and two together. But I didn't. But I'm not going to beat myself up because I'm not the expert in that, right? My doctor is. I've got a doctor now, so right. That's a kindness to myself, and I also gonna give her a little card, little thank you card, right? Because I think she deserves it. I know I'm just like a new patient and everything, but I'm just thrilled to death that this experience is not totally overwhelming. It's waking me up, right? It's waking me up into recognizing that, I have to take care of myself this whole week. This is what the topics have been on top of, is the fact that, we got to fill our own cups. We got to take care of ourselves because otherwise we're just a milkshake glass with somebody's straw in the bottom going with nothing left for us. Okay. Um, Thank you. Thank you, Kathy. I told Cindy I'm happy for her too, that she found a good doctor. Yeah, I did. I did. And that's self parenting. We look out for ourselves, right? We are the priority. Each one of us, we are the most important person on this planet, right? Nobody is above you. Nobody, right? And we have to remember that each one of us matters, and we have to treat ourselves like we matter. And sometimes we do have to stick our heels in, right? Put up with the side eyes that somebody want to give us because we're learning how to say no. Okay, here we go. 54 powerful words. Yeah, I pull one word, it's the first perspective that comes to my mind. Sometimes it's relevant to the conversation, sometimes I go off in a totally different direction. And we just go into it for a couple of minutes. And here we go. The word we have today, ah, this is beautiful. Thumbnail. Grace swoops in to make the impossible possible. Isn't that beautiful? And just moving forward and just doing the very best that we can in the creation of the best human being each one of us can be, being the stewards in our family, being the stewards in our city, in our province or state or country or globally, but more importantly, being that steward to ourselves. And, just trust in the choices, not to be afraid to make choices that we know are good for us. But sometimes we have a hard time finding that voice to say, yeah, no, right? That ain't happening today. That ain't happening ever. And it could be a big mistake, right? I didn't fight for my marriage. I'm not sure if that was a mistake, right? Set him free. If he comes back, he's yours. If he doesn't, he never was. He was mine. I know that, right? And it took us a long time to finally, eventually, seriously call it quits, right? But I could have fought for that marriage. I could have had those conversations to see where we went wrong. Maybe there was something salvageable in that. But I can't go back there and do it all over again. I can't, right? That's the past. It really is. And we are always moving forward, right? We're always moving forward and all we can do is make the best choices as we possibly can in that, right? And one of the best choices we could possibly do is making ourselves that priority. Everything else is secondary. Everything else is not to say they don't count, right? That's our stewardship. That's our give back. That's where our expertise lays, right? We don't have all the answers, but we've got some, right? You guys, grace swoops in to make the impossible possible, the very best that you can, and not to worry because in the end, everything does work out, right? The way it should be, not necessarily the way we want it to be. But if we can be kind to ourselves in that process, right? Maybe sitting in that rocking chair when we're 85 years old, right? We'll have a little bit of pride in ourselves that we did hold our own. We might have some stories to tell and some experiences to share, right? Might not be tomorrow, might not be 10 years, but somewheres down the road, somebody might stumble onto it and said, if Tammy can do it, so can I. Okay, you guys, that's my good cheer. We'll see you on Sunday night. If not, we'll see you on Monday. You guys have a great weekend.